And we are live, everybody. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, October 24th. I am Josh Engelman. This is DK DFS. We've got a 7-game main slate ahead of us. We've got a really nice 4-game night slate as well. We're not going to be touching on that during the Deeper Dive, but it does exist. So keep your eyes peeled for more there. It's just a fun way to break up the night. Decent games, sort of. We'll talk about all of them. First, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Our Twitter, well, my Twitter handle is under my body. You can follow him at DK__DFS. What's going on, man?
Yeah, doing good. Glad it's Friday. Really happy too that DraftKings broke it up into 2 slates. I was hoping they were going to do that on Wednesday, but like 7-game main slate, 4-game night slate's perfect. So yeah, really glad they did that.
Yeah, we have a little bit of injury news that we're still waiting on. We got some injury news before the show started. Kristaps Porzingis is going to be out for Atlanta. There's still some nonsense to wait on with the New York Knicks. Who else? Ja Morant is questionable today. That has a massive impact on the slate and the way that value looks for today. The Pelicans are a weird team and maybe trotting out DeAndre Jordan at center. That's a real statement coming out of my mouth. Did I miss any major injury stuff? I don't think that. I think that's everybody. Let me scroll down.
I think that's about it. Yeah, I mean, Cat and
DeAndre Hunter, Karis LeVert.
Yep.
That's about it. I think I hit the big ones. You and I both got bit by the Andrew Nembhard bug, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Not
it's just
great.
This is one of those stretches for me. Can't avoid the injuries, but that one was brutal. Had a lot in his props, 100% DFS, so that hurt.
When I woke up this morning and I started prepping these games, I couldn't figure out what was going on with this Milwaukee-Toronto game. I was just like 6:30. Then finally, it all made sense to me. But
it's so weird. Like, do we know why this game is like 30 minutes earlier? Like.
World Series, I assume.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
That was just my assumption, at least. We also had a very big news day yesterday. Greg got caught up in the news cycle. Terry Rozier goes down. Chauncey Billups goes down. I can't remember who else went down. Somebody else went down.
Damon Jones, I think, right?
Oh yeah, Damon Jones. Wild day.
Reading that was very entertaining. Reading Twitter, Greg's Twitter, like all the people like replying, like that was one of the best parts of the day for sure.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a interesting 36 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody else gets popped for this, like in the next day or so, man, it's gonna be a rocket ship.
For sure. It's one of the best bits though going on Twitter right now. So definitely would recommend.
It's fantastic. Greg will be on after this 6 o'clock live before lock. Let's talk about this slate. Let's just work our way through each game. We'll start this one off. Atlanta at Orlando. Weird game. We got the news before this. Kristaps Porzingis is out for this one. I'm going to assume that Onyeka Okongwu just starts at center. Is that your expectation for this one?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, it didn't really seem like there was a different direction for that one to go, but conceivably that's what we've got for today. How does that make you feel, I guess, about Atlanta? Changes up their spacing a little bit, changes up their offense a little bit. Does anybody stand out to you right now from the Hawks?
Yeah, it's weird. Like I thought that I would like more from Atlanta with Porzingis getting rolled out, but really not so much. Like Okongwu's still priced up at 6.6. So like he's in play now, but he's not really a guy that stands out as like an amazing point per dollar option. NAW right now is the guy getting the most love, 4K, projecting for about 20% ownership. We are still waiting on the Ricochet news. If he gets rolled out, obviously NAW would benefit there, but I understand why he's getting some love, the price point plus the eligibility. I think Jalen Johnson looks a little bit better. They're not going to run really much offense through Okongwu. So I think a little bit more usage for a guy like Jalen Johnson. He's projected for sub 10% ownership. But Mo Gay, he'll be the backup center. He's 3.2K. I think he's playable for value, but I think there's other value options I would rather get to. Even with the KP injury, there's still not a ton that like really stands out for Atlanta.
Yeah, obviously not a great matchup against Orlando. They're not a particularly fast team. They're an absolutely great defensive team. So like that doesn't usually become like a recipe for success. And you're seeing it right now. This is the boom bust tool at Stokastic pulled up right now. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is very interesting. He's projected for 20% ownership. That's the only guy in double digits for Atlanta. He's 27% optimal in our data. So we actually think that he's a little bit under-owned. Only one other guy is north of 10% optimal. That's actually a Kongwu at 11.5%. He's center only. That's going to be a crowded position today, one way or the other, only projected for 8% ownership. So even with Porzingis not playing today, 20% ownership to Nickeil Alexander-Walker is kind of it from a bulk perspective. This could look very different, though, if Risacher gets ruled out.
Yes. Do you think that NAW would start if Risacher gets ruled out? Because that's my lean on who it would be.
That makes the most sense, right?
Yeah.
I think he would just start. That makes sense to me. Dyson Daniels essentially plays the 3 in this scenario, and then Jalen Johnson and Okongwu. Yeah, agreed. And he looks good now. He's just going to look better than he does right now if that happens. If Risacher is out, what do you think that unlocks? Because I do think Mo Gay looks better in that scenario. I think Luke Kennard starts to look a little bit more interesting, I guess is the word.
Yeah, I think Kennard would be the next I would look to, probably 3.8K. Did have a solid role. I mean, he played 30 minutes, did close in the blowout there. But I think Kennard would look a lot better. Maybe you would get some overlap with like Keaton Wallace and Trae Young. But I don't think anything else would really open up. Like someone would probably get added to the rotation, but I don't think I would have any interest there.
Okay. Anything else you want to add here for Atlanta? I don't find them to be the most captivating team to talk about today. I want to watch this game, and we will be watching this game live on Playback, playback.tv/Stokastic. Myself and Greg will be live on Playback watching the games from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Come hang out. We have 100 VIP passes to hand out. That means 100 of you can come and watch that if you don't have League Pass or an account that you could link to Playback. Worst case scenario, you sit in chat to hang out with us. Anything else for Atlanta? Sorry, that worked into a perfect plug.
Yeah, no. I think I'm ready to move on.
All right, let's talk about Orlando. I love this team as a basketball team. I'm going to struggle to think about what I actually like about them for a DFS perspective every time that they're healthy. Right now, 18% ownership coming into Paolo Banchero, 18% ownership coming into Franz Wagner, 18% ownership coming into Desmond Bane. Like, I don't know what to do here. I don't know. I'm never going to be able to separate these guys. It's all stupid because they all have only their positions. Neither one of them has an MPE. They're all kind of like the same value relative to their fantasy points. Who do you like the most here? I don't know what to do.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't know if I have like super strong opinion here. Like all these guys had like 25 to 30% usage last game. In a competitive game, you should see low to mid 30s minutes for all three. It's a really good matchup. I mean, probably Bane is the easiest to get to because he's 6.9K, but I think all three are good options. But yeah, I'm also struggling to kind of, decide like which one I really prefer over the other. Especially like single entry, you got to make tough calls if you're picking between these guys. But they all look pretty similar to me.
They're all live to go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you going to be surprised if Paolo has the big day, if Franz has the big day, if like these guys are they're all really, really good. I'm happy to have them. Like, I'm not trying to downplay that I like them. But I can't be like, oh, I like, like Franz Wagner's the guy today. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll never have that lean for these guys. I think the more interesting thing to talk about for this Orlando Magic team is that those three guys aren't the only guys that are getting that ownership. $3,500 Tyus Jones is also 16.5% projected owned right now. We have him 6.5% optimal. We aren't seeing this the same way. What do you want to do with Tyus Jones?
I think he's going a little bit overowned. I get why he's getting some ownership. He's cheap, the matchup, but I mean, he was like an afterthought in the preseason with this Magic team, like rates way down. So like, yes, he's in play, but I do think he's going a little bit overowned right now. So yeah, that's kind of the thoughts there with Tyus. The front court I think is a little bit interesting because they're like unowned. Goga Batadze, Wendell Carter Jr., both around that 5% ownership range. Goga, pretty good point per minute player. Wendell Carter Jr. had a really solid preseason. Obviously not a great game one, but I think those two are interesting contrarian plays at their salaries.
I've got Goga on the sneak tip today, which I hate because I love that dude. Like, I just want that guy to get more minutes. I wish he were like the starting center and like he would be playing 28 minutes a night for New Orleans right now and dramatically improve their team. We put him on Charlotte right now and he's a 28 minute a game starter and they're like, oh wow, they look much more composed. Right now he's just like such an afterthought. It feels like they don't even like him. And just every time he plays, he just anchors their defense perfectly. 3,800. Sign me up for any sort of go-go. We've got him with a +7 leverage score right now in the boom bust. It's got to be one of the biggest leverage numbers that we have.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement of like just Goga's underrated and should be playing more, but he's not. So
you got anything else here for Orlando?
No, I mean, Anthony Black as a pivot off Tyus Jones, I guess, coming in about a third of the ownership. I still don't love it, but I think if I had to pick one of those guys, I think I'd just rather go to Black at a third of the ownership than Tyus.
All right, let's move on to the Boston Celtics. 3.5 point dogs in New York, 230 total here, but there's a lot up in the air. Towns questionable, Josh Hart questionable. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson is not going to be playing in this one. The Celtics have their own foibles. What are you seeing here in this game? Is this an interesting game to you? Do you prefer a particular side to this one? This could be a much more fun game normally. There's not a ton of ownership coming in here. I got a guy in this one, but I'm curious what you're looking at.
Yeah, I think it's the Boston side. I'm pretty high on Boston for tournaments. So that's going to be, well, Peyton Pritchard's right now getting the most ownership, around 15%, but I still like Derek White and Jaylen Brown too, around that 10% ownership range. All three of these guys, the minutes were really solid. 37 minutes for Pritchard, 35 for Derek White, 36 for Jaylen Brown. White and Brown had 27% usage rate, Peyton Pritchard around 20%, but again, this is just where the offense is coming from Boston, and then they're kind of going to rotate the front court guys, right? But yeah, I like the spot here for Boston. I think all three of those guys are going a little bit overlooked. So 2 guards plus Jaylen Brown, I like a lot for tournaments.
That's what I like to hear, man. That's what I like to hear. I'm very heavy, or I'm very high on Derek White. He's coming out of my data like popping like crazy, 12% owned. Feels like I'm going to easily be able to get to like 30 in tournaments, and that's where I want to be. He's sort of like the better version of Andrew Nembhard. Without Jason Tatum here, and without Porzingis here, and without Drew Holiday here, like Derek White's just going to have much more usage. His points per game by the time this season is over are going to be multiple points higher than what you've seen over these past few years. The assists are going to rise, and like the average person is just not going to think about it like that. Now, 7,900 is not a great price tag, but he's going to end up priced in this like mid 8s range. I think Jaylen Brown's going to end up in the low 9s by the time all of this is said and done. I want to get Derek White here, especially in this matchup against the Knicks. Like, Josh Hart certainly isn't healthy. Towns isn't exactly a great defensive center. Huck Porty's going to play like 18 minutes. They're not that good of a defensive team right now. It's not like their point of attack stuff. Like Brunson's a sieve when it comes to it defensively. Like, I think Derek White's going to be able to find success in this game too. I echo the fact that I would happily get some Jaylen Brown or Peyton Pritchard, but White's the dude I want here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the different role for Derek White, right? Like similar to Nembhard, much different role. Has the ball in his hands way more. Potential assists are up, usage is up. So He's a different player this year than he was last year.
What can we do here with the New York Knicks, or is this just a waiting game? Are we going to get news at 6:58 that Towns is out?
I'm not 100% sure that Towns plays. There was a quote out there that said that like he really gutted it out because he didn't want to miss the home opener. And let me see if I can find it, but it didn't give me I was like, okay, maybe he's a little bit more questionable than. So the quote is, had grade 2 quad strain, said it was important for him to play through it tonight. I didn't want to disappoint the fans.
If he had a grade 2 quad strain, he'd be out for 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's what it says on Twitter, or that's what the
I'm not. If that's a 3 to 4 week injury.
Yeah, so that's why I think like there's a chance that he doesn't play here. And yeah, this is not the early game; it's 30 minutes after, but. So we definitely get some value here in the front court, obviously with Yabusele and Huck Porty.
Yeah, Yabu would become quite the thing, and Huck Porty would become quite the thing today because of that. Would just value galore at that point. Do you like anything else here? Because I don't really. Brunson's a little interesting to me at 8,400, sort of for the same reasons that I like White and Brown. Boston's front court stinks too. Like it's Kada and all these other idiots. Like I think there's not a lot of exceptional defense either. I think he should thrive at least a little bit here, especially when he's working with Towns. So I don't mind getting to a bit of Brunson. He's only 7% owned. It seems like a nice GPP play.
Yeah, I think like any of the top 4 guys I'm okay with: Brunson, OG, Bridges, and Towns. Mikal Bridges led 15 potential assists, I want to say it was last game. So he had a bit more of a playmaking role. Cat, if he's in, obviously has some interest there too. The Knicks did run 11-man rotations, a lot different than Thibodeau, but still main guys all saw good minutes. So like any of those guys, I think are fine filler plays for me, but. Currently, assuming Cat's in, there's no one I'm going to go out of my way to play.
Do you think Josh Hart's playing? Does that matter to you in any way?
I don't really I couldn't really find anything definitive on Josh Hart. So
he's 6,700, by the way. So like, you're not playing Josh Hart today, but obviously impacts the rest of the rotation. Yeah,
it would definitely hurt like some of the bench guys for sure.
Nicholas Barrett asked the question, who thrives when Cat is off the floor? Everybody. Like it's everybody gets more when that happens. Everything changes too. Like Brunson can only take on so much more in that time. Bridges, big usage bump. OG is going to, use more possessions in that scenario as well. Those are probably the 2 guys that get like the most practical bump, but it's more of a minutes thing for everybody else. Offensively, it's just going to be the Brunson show. I don't really want to talk about this game, but it's on the slate. So Cleveland and Brooklyn. Cavs are 11.5-point favorites in Brooklyn. And if we're being honest, it should still probably be even more than that. This Brooklyn team is absolutely dreadful. Just not good. Not good at all. Cleveland is dinged up. Obviously, no Darius Garland for this one. And we're going to be waiting on the news for DeAndre Hunter, who is questionable. That will be an interesting swing piece for this one. What say you in this game? Does anybody stand out? We've got a couple guys in that 15% ownership range, just like we talked about, but nobody pulling away.
Yeah, I think the guys that I like the best here are going to be Mobley and Lonzo Ball. So Mobley talked about it in the last stream, but again, they're running just more offense through him. He was more aggressive looking for a shot in the preseason, and we kind of saw that opening night as well. Love the spot here against Brooklyn. Reasonable ownership. So yeah, I like Mobley. And then Lonzo Ball, there were quotes that like he was going to be limited game 1, but he came out and played 23 minutes. So if he's going to play 20 plus minutes at 4.4K on a slate that kind of locks like a lot of great value, then I definitely have some interest in Lonzo. The other guys getting some love: Jarrett Allen, Donovan Mitchell. I'm just like indifferent on Jarrett Allen, and then Donovan Mitchell obviously has a high ceiling. Led the team with a 35% usage rate last game. You did see 35 minutes too for both Mobley and Mitchell. I know last year Cleveland was really conservative with the minutes, but that was good to see that the two main guys push for 35 plus minutes. And then, DeAndre Hunter news is pretty important, obviously. If he gets ruled out, you're going to have some more value. You get a Jalen Tyson start, a little bit more run for some of these secondary options. But Hunter, assuming he does play 5,600, probably pass. I don't know if he would get full minutes. Could be on a limit. We'll have to keep an eye on that. That's basically it for me for Cleveland.
I love the Lonzo shout. I'm in full agreement there. He's popping out pretty nicely in my projection. So I'm with you there. Are we doing the Jalen Tyson experience if we don't have DeAndre Hunter today?
I think he's going to be in play. It'll be interesting to see what the ownership is. He was someone that I was talking about before lock, how like the ownership was, it got too high. So I was like, okay, I just don't want Tyson at 60%. Ended up working out. But yeah, it'll depend on the ownership. If he's, not getting a ton of love, I'm more inclined to play. If he's going to be extremely popular like he was a couple days ago, I think I'm more inclined to fade.
Well, let's get into the more interesting team. No, I'm kidding. Brooklyn, the highest owned guy on Brooklyn is 7.5% to Nick Claxton. It's 6.5% to Michael Porter Jr. It's 3 or less to everybody else. I'd say their names. It won't matter to you guys. We don't know them. Do you like anything here for Brooklyn? Because unfortunately, I do like one guy, sort of.
I think the top 3 guys, Claxton, Michael Porter Jr., and Cam Thomas, are interesting tournament plays. Obviously, everyone saw what happened game 1. Like, they got pulled early in the third quarter, didn't play a ton in the fourth quarter. So people are like, oh, we're just completely off Brooklyn. But if you kind of looked at the preseason rotations, in one of the dress rehearsal games, these starters were pushing for 30-plus minutes. So I do think that, they are viable here in tournaments. Thomas, Michael Porter Jr., and Claxton. Claxton had a solid first half rotation. And again, kind of everyone got screwed there in the second half. So those 3, I think, are viable. I'm not going to mess with anyone else, though, on this team. Like the rookies, I'm staying away from. Not messing with like Zaire Williams or Tyrese Martin or anyone like that. So just the top 3 guys, and that's it.
Zachary Rees-Sachet is out for today.
Okay. So Atlanta value, here we come.
Yeah. And I have like this much interest in Ben Saraf tonight.
Okay.
He just keeps showing up in my stuff.
Yeah, I just have no confidence in his minutes, like, at all.
No, neither do I. No, zero confidence in it. I have no confidence in basically any of these idiots' minutes. They're all terrible. Dreadful basketball players. But I just want to say it. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. If you need stupid value, go to Ben Saraf, but they're probably all going to play like 22 minutes, and they're all going to be shit because they're playing Cleveland, and Brooklyn's the worst team in the league. It's a shame. So I want to circle back to Atlanta just for 1 second. I know we already talked about it, but just to like hit on it again. Zachary Rees-Sachet is out. At least our expectation right now. Check the starting lineups page at Stokastic.com. You go to Stokastic.com, NBA dropdown. Why am I not doing this while I talk about it? NBA dropdown, projected starters. You can find it right here. This is where all the data guys on the back end here make our updates. You can see it right here. Once this goes in, we'll update this with who we expect it to be. You and I are expecting Nickeil Alexander-Walker to be that starter. Not that it has to be him, but I'm expecting us to put him there. If we don't, you'll see somebody different. We'll have a different outlook, different updates to the projections. But this is where every single lineup is, folks. Just go check it out. Makes it very easy to know what direction we're going. But we talked about it before. Rees-Sachet out. Bump to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was already popular. What else do you like now?
I think Luke Kennard is now a pretty solid value here at 3.8K. I also think there's it's not super likely, but there's an outside chance that Vit Krejci just gets thrown in the starting lineup. I know he's out of the rotation last game, but they could do something weird like that. Throw him in there. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Kennard's the next guy I'm looking to just as the price point.
Ace and Newell's here too. They could get the rookie some minutes.
Yeah, it's possible. Again, I'm not super confident of who gets added to the rotation, I guess, for Atlanta.
I could see Newell stepping in here just because it's another big body. They're kind of lacking that with KP out as well. They probably need more on the 3, 4, 5 spectrum than the 1, 2, 3 spectrum. I wouldn't be surprised to see Newell.
Yeah, I think that's.
I'm not saying he's going out there and playing like 28 minutes or anything, but like he might play 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I'll get back to that Atlanta later.
My guess is like NAW now is going to be probably your most popular value play in the slate, assuming he starts. And then Kennard, I think is going to get some ownership too.
Yeah, and whether Alexander Walker starts or not, he was already a 25% owned guy. He's a great option with a bigger minutes ceiling, even if he's off the bench. But obviously, if he starts, that's going to profile a little bit better. Okay, we're around the halfway point, so it's probably a good time to remind you guys that you can sign up at Stokastic and get 20% off either an NBA package or an all-access monthly package using the promo code OKC. The links are in the description of this video. Projections, ownership. I've been sharing the boom bust tool throughout this show. You get that. It's got boom scores, bust scores, optimal rates, all the ownership information. You get our single lineup simulator, the pre-contest generator, the actual sims, the post-contest sims. That'll cover you for everything for the NBA. That's every day, every slate. But if you get the all-access package, that'll cover you for the NFL. That's coming up this Sunday and Monday and Thursday and just never stops. UFC pay-per-view this weekend. Tom Aspinall, heavyweight champion of the world, is going to be fighting this weekend. We've got MMA sims. We've got NHL projections and ownership. NASCAR exists. Golf exists. No reason to not use the 20% off promo code. This is going to still exist for a couple more days. We're running this one for the week. We don't do a ton of discounts, particularly on all access. So if you're interested to get in, now is absolutely the best time for you to do that. Oops, lost the overlay. It's back. Detroit and Houston, fun game. Detroit laid a bit of an egg in their opener, and Houston's just a weird-ass team right now. Just monstrous human beings. Let's start on the Detroit side. Obviously, this is a pretty fun game. Like, if you want to watch it, these are two actual quality teams. I'm not a big believer in the Pistons, and no one's a big believer in them today in DFS. Highest owned guy on the DraftKings side is 5% to Cade. Do you like anything here for the Pistons?
Not a ton. Tough matchup here. Cade feels priced about right. Same with the other starters. Duren maybe a little bit overpriced. I know he got in some foul trouble last game. I'll mention it again. Like, this is a big front court. You could see a little bit of overlap with him and Isaiah Stewart. Ron Holland had a big game off the bench, but he's up to 4.7K. Duncan Robinson had the Tony Snell performance, 32 minutes. I think only 2 points, and that was it. We do have to keep an eye on LeVert. He is downgraded to questionable, so kind of lean that he sits here. So my expectation if he sits is you'd probably get Jenkins in their rotation as a backup guard. But I still don't know if LeVert being out would open up a ton for me. So yeah, Pistons probably one of my least favorite teams to get to at the moment.
Yeah, I don't have much here. If I'm going anywhere, it's Cade, but he's 10K. If I'm spending the full bag, I want it to be Wemby. But Cade at low ownership in the spot, like, I do have a little bit of interest. It's going to be tough sledding, getting any sort of efficient offense. Detroit's offense isn't very good to begin with. That is not their strong suit. Houston is just a sea of 7-foot monsters. So it's going to be tricky. If LeVert is out, that will certainly open stuff up a little bit, but I don't find them to be a practically interesting DFS team for today. Houston does have some interesting options. Let's just get to the main guy. $4,300 Steven Adams, the starting center for the Houston Rockets, is 20% owned, 20% optimal. And he played massive minutes in the opener, way more than I was expecting him to play.
Yeah, I figured that, like, if they were like playing from ahead or close game, that he had minute ceiling, and we saw it last game. I like Steven Adams a lot for value. I know ownership is there right now, but 4.3K just feels underpriced for Steven Adams. So he's not as high usage player, but not a bad point per minute player, good rebounder. And I think, can definitely see, high 20s minutes again here. So yeah, I think Adams pretty good value play at 4.3.
I love him. It's hard not to. Just 4,300 is very easy. I wish that he had a better eligibility. I'm glad that Şengün is power forward center, but yeah, I'm going to be using Steven Adams as value. If we open up more value, he'll look a little bit less interesting just because of his position. But to me, he's pretty clearly the first name I want to click on for Houston. Is Amen Thompson the next guy for you? Because he's the second highest owned guy. Do you like anything else for Houston?
Yeah, I think it's Şengün and Thompson next. So Amen Thompson dealt with cramps right at the beginning of overtime. So really didn't play at all in overtime, but still 63 passes made, 15 potential assists. He was their primary ball handler. He's a guy that obviously can stuff the stat sheet. He's at a reasonable price point here at 7.7. So I'm higher on Amen Thompson right now than the current ownership. And once again, I'm higher on Elfrid Şengün than the current ownership, 9.4K. Does have power forward eligibility too, which is nice. Again, he's also a different role this year without Van Vliet. Had 13 potential assists last game. Ceiling, I think, is pretty high on Şengün. So, yeah, Thompson and Şengün, I like a good amount here as GPP plays.
Adams is the one that's popping for me for value, but again, it's center, so it's a little bit limited. I'm with you on Thompson. I think everybody else looks like super duper similar. I don't love Şengün as much as I did for opening night. 9,400 is real. Not that I don't like him. I'm certainly going to have a bit. I don't have as much interest in Durant tonight as I did before. I don't think that Jabari Smith looks all that good. That's news for tomorrow, so I don't care. Don't give me Chet news today. I don't need that. I don't have anything else here for Houston.
I'll mention Tari
really
Eason. Obviously, he had an awful game last game, but I do think if he can actually make some shots that you could see 25, even upwards of 30 minutes, I think he's in his range of outcomes. We know he's a good point per minute player, completely unowned. So you want to take a shot into him in a large hill tournament, I think that's okay.
Once again, Underdog, please make a just today injury news account for Twitter. Surely that's not difficult. It would help me out tremendously.
I thought they made a tweet about, I think it was last year. They're like, oh, we're not going to give news for the next day until after the slate, but they're still doing it.
I'm just sick of my watch vibrating for stuff that's not relevant to me today. There's nothing I could do to stop it. Come on, man. Help us out here. All right, next game. We've got 3 to go. The Miami Heat, 2-point dogs in Memphis, rather. 231 total. Oh, Miami had a bit of a breakout here. Norm Powell, Andrew Wiggins both had real nice games in the opener. Andrew Wiggins is the guy that we need to talk about right now. Don't want to bury the lead for this one. 45% ownership on a $5,800 Andrew Wiggins. He's 41% optimal. I mean, clearly he looks great. He's no doubt about it. One of the first things you're putting into any cash lineup that you're playing today. Do you like Andrew Wiggins today?
I think he's doing a little bit over-owned. I understand why he's getting ownership, like the matchup, like the position, like the price point. But if he's going to be around 50%, I'm okay being lighter on that. Wiggins is not going to be a super high usage player with this offense. It's going to be a lot of Norm Powell and then Bam. Davion had a solid role as well. So, I think I like Wiggins, good point per dollar value for sure. Definitely someone, as you said, you click in cash games. But if he's going to hold around 50%, I think I'm okay being lighter on that.
What about the rest of these guys? Bam's pulling about 20% ownership. I think he looks reasonable here at 8,100. And then Nikola Jovic, 4,600 power forward center eligible. He's 12% owned. We've got negative leverage on all these guys.
Yeah. Jovic, the minutes don't have to be there. He's going to start, but he's not a guarantee to close. I do think Jaquez would be an interesting leverage play to Jovic right now, because if Jovic does not close, it's probably going to be Jaquez off the bench. Jaquez coming in a fifth of the ownership of Jovic. So I think that's a little bit interesting. You mentioned Bam, 8.1K, I think is fine. I do think you're probably going to see a little bit more Khalil Ware in this game. It was a little bit surprising. He only played 13 minutes. I think coming back from an ankle injury, that just kind of took it easy on him. But I would not be shocked if Ware pushes for 20 plus minutes here. And then I have some more interest in Davion Mitchell than the field right now. He's only currently projected for 4% ownership. Led the team potential assists. I think if he avoids foul trouble, he should definitely play over 30 minutes here. So I know the price has jumped way up on Davion, but I still think he's in play.
He went bananas, huh? That opener. Oof. I'd like to get to him. I'm just always very nervous, but he does appear to be a different basketball player while playing for the Miami Heat than he is for every other team that exists. It must have been really tough having to play for Sacramento. Like, that's a shitstorm constantly. You sneak into Toronto for a bit. They're dumb too. Then he gets to Miami. They're like a real team. I get it. I'd like to play a little bit of them. I don't know if I'm going to get much. Norm Powell's certainly going to be in, Andrew Wiggins is certainly going to be in a large majority of my lineups just because of that price tag and that flexibility. I assume I'm running our sims right now. We had a projections update at 531, ownership at 534. This is as fresh as it gets when it comes to data. When I take the top 150 lineups here, which I'm going to be able to do in the next 5 seconds, I'm expecting Andrew Wiggins to be the highest exposed guy here. Second, totally forgot about the Atlanta news. It's Nickeil Alexander-Walker at the tippy top. He's now 44% owned.
Yeah, not surprised about that at all.
Yeah. Wig is 2. 44. They're both projected for about 40% ownership. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is in 97% of the top 150 lineups. Andrew Wiggins is in 60. Oof. Big numbers. Is there anything else we need to say about the Miami Heat right now?
I don't think so. I guess if Ja Morant gets ruled out, I would like Davion slightly less foul risk, I guess, because Davion is pretty foul prone. So maybe it would like Davion Mitchell a little bit more in that scenario. But I don't think there's anything else for me.
Well, let's have that conversation about Ja Morant. He's questionable today, as is KCP. Now, if Ja is out, Javon Small is going to become very, very popular at 3,300. Would you agree with me there?
Yeah, I think he could be more. He could get more ownership than NAW if Ja gets rolled out. But it depends when. It depends when Ja gets rolled out. If he does.
Very true. Very true. But that's going to be the direction you're going to want to go. So be aware of that. How do you feel about Ja today if he's in? Because I love him.
Yeah, I think he's playable. Again, it's really just the minutes, and that's kind of what I expected from Memphis. It's just a pretty spread out rotation. Ja, 28 minutes, Jaren, 26 minutes. KCP was the only guy that played over 30 minutes. So that is the one downside, is I don't see a massive minute ceiling. But yeah, I mean, he's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. He's going to be plays, had a 37% usage rate. Again, if you look at this team, 37% usage rate for Ja, 34% for Jaren, and then everyone else sub 20%. So that's a lot of where the offense is coming from. So those two are playable. Again, though, just don't love what I saw from the rotation.
It's always fun to start with a little Ja Morant conversation, who you might want to play if he's not playing. But the highest owned guy on the Memphis Grizzlies right now is not Ja Morant or his backup. It is 20% owned Jock Landale. How are you feeling about the Jock Landale experience today? Because unfortunately, I agree with it.
Yeah, I do too. He played a little bit more than I thought. I wasn't super confident in his minutes, but 25 minutes for Landale is decent for sure. Again, he's only 4.2K. So I have no issue with the current ownership. I think he's a solid value. His ownership will probably drop if Ja gets rolled out. But yeah, I think he's right now a pretty good point per hour play.
Who's better, Jock Landale or Steven Adams today?
Steven Adams.
Okay. Both of those guys will see their ownership drop if Morant is out, just because Javon Small will recalibrate the way that this slate is played by creating that sort of value. Any Triple J interest? He's basically unowned. Cedric Coward is pulling a little bit of love. He's 8% owned at 3,700. I could see him being very interesting if we do lose KCP.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention that. It's going to be Small that would start if Ja gets rolled out, and I think Coward would start if KCP gets rolled out. So, but Coward's still off the bench, played 22 minutes. So he's still playable if both those guys are in, but he becomes a lot more interesting too if one or both those guys get rolled out.
What's your lean on Morant right now?
I've been going back and forth on it. I don't know, because he tweaked the ankle. Obviously, he's dealt with a lot of injuries in the past, a lot of ankle injuries. So I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I don't have a super strong lane.
I'm assuming you don't have any lean on KCP other than like he probably plays because he's KCP.
Yeah, I would say lean in on KCP, but again, that's not super confident either.
Okay. I don't think I have anything else here. I mean, Santi Aldama is unplayable at 7,100. Jalen Wells just isn't that kind of player. I don't think there's anything else to touch on here from Memphis.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else for me either.
Don't forget, folks, this is not the only show. Live Before Lock is after this, 6 p.m. They're going to take you all the way till 7. Hit the like button now if you can. Show those guys some love now. There's 1,600 of you in the door. Hit that thumbs up. Let's run that number up as high as we can. Show those guys a big like count when they end up getting on this show. Let's move to the next game. We got 2 to go. At least we could finally talk about somebody fun. The San Antonio Spurs. Favorites here in New Orleans. And Victor Wembanyama is $11,300. And I like this dude quite a bit today because I don't really care if it's Yves Missi, if it's Queen, if it's Carlo Makovich, if it's DeAndre Jordan. Victor Wembanyama is going to give the business to every single one of those idiots. I already bet it. I love him today. And he's 18% owned. Give me Wemby.
Yeah, I feel like a broken record here. He was my favorite tournament play of the slate, last slate, and I once again am really high on him. Ownership is coming up a little bit, but I don't still know
Carlo Makovich out, so we're starting to lose some of those big bodies on the New Orleans side.
Okay.
Yves Missi out as well.
Yeah. So here comes
DeAndre Jordan versus Victor Wembanyama, baby. Let's get it. Oh, I mean, there's no bigger mismatch.
Yeah, like Wemby is going to. I'm curious, like, what are the Pelicans? What are they going to do against Wemby, man? Like, I don't know what they're going to do.
They're going to try to bring weapons, man.
But yeah, I'm in a total agreement with you. I love Wemby. I think he's one of my favorite spend ups right now on the slate. So he looks amazing. Stephon Castle, another guy to mention here, 6.8K. He was pacing for low 30s minutes. Also, he had a 34% usage rate last game. Nice potential assists as well. So I think I'm higher on Castle right now than the current 20% ownership. I also think he's a really good play in the mid range. Like he's right there, in my opinion, with like the Boston guards, the guys that I really want to try to get to. So yeah, I'm pretty high on Castle.
I like Castle as well.
Yeah.
And I don't like him as a real player, but I think he looks great today for DFS.
Yeah, I think and again, he's got shooting guard eligibility too, which is nice. So nice flexibility there. The rest of the team, I think these rotation guys are still viable too. Keldon Johnson, 4.8K, I think is a fair value. Shampenny is still playing decent minutes, played 25 minutes last game. So both those guys I think are interesting. I'm going to mention Kornet again. It burned me last game. He picked up 3 fouls in 3 minutes. Was really tilting about that. But you did see overlap with him and Wemby in the second quarter. And I think he probably would have came back in the fourth if the game was competitive. So good point per minute player. Again, like if you're looking at the opposite side, like there's just no one on the front court for the Pelicans. So I think he's an interesting large field tournament play at 1%.
I cannot believe that this is going to be like Wemby versus DeAndre Jordan tonight. Dude, I mean, I bet his future of him dropping 60 at any point in time this year. Why the hell couldn't it be tonight?
What were the odds on that? I'm just curious.
Let me pull it up. I don't remember. 15 maybe.
Okay. But yeah, I mean,
Pelicans, I might not be able to find this quickly. I have honestly, a future for every single team, so I might have to scroll a bit.
Okay, yeah. I honestly, again, I think DeAndre Jordan starts here, even though he's just signed. You got Derek Queen as another big body, I guess, and then Hunter Dickinson. Like those are the only big guys that the Pelicans have. So just the reasons why me and Josh are extremely high on Wembanyama.
17-1.
Okay. I think that's
he looks great. He looks so good. I'm going to hop over right now to the New Orleans Pelicans projections. These are obviously sort of updated, but they're going to need more, I'm guessing. We've got Hunter Dickinson in a little bit. Carlo Makovich is still in, so this is going to need a bit of a refresh. But what can we do with these guys? Does this open up anything? Obviously, DeAndre Jordan is not going to be able to be rostered. I can't imagine he is in the DraftKings salary file today. Do you want to get to Derek Queen now at 4K? Power forward center eligible?
I'm intrigued by Derek Queen. Again, does have nice eligibility. He's going to have to play more than he did last game. He played 14 minutes off the bench. Like, I don't really know how many minutes DeAndre Jordan can play. I don't think they're going to want to play Hunter Dickinson. I know Hunter Dickinson saw one shift there in the first quarter, but I really don't think they want to get him on the floor. So Derek Queen, I do think is interesting for value. I'm curious to see what the ownership comes in him once it updates, but I think he's like the first guy I would look to for value, at least for New Orleans.
He's going to be biting off way too much more than he can chew in this scenario. If they're smart, they don't start Queen. And just like, you don't want him to just immediately pick up 2 trying to guard this giant Gumby looking human being. But 4K power forward center, and they're just, it's basically like, well, just play as much as you can, I guess. We don't have an alternative. Like, you're going to get to use all 6 fouls today, son.
Yep, for sure. I saw someone in the chat mentioning Zion at the 5. Yeah, I think you could see some Zion at the 5 here tonight for sure.
He's going to walk straight under Wemby's legs.
Hey, now the camera's picking me up a little bit. I know it looked like Eric yesterday with the shadows. Someone mentioned Sadiq Bey. I think Sadiq Bey, decent value here, 4.1K. He was like the first guy off the bench, played almost 30 minutes. So ownership right now is 15%. I think that might drop a little bit just with some other stuff opening up, but I still think he's a decent value there.
We have DeAndre Jordan projected for 22 minutes. He just doesn't show up in the boom bust tool because he doesn't have a salary. That's just like one of the quirks, but we have him in for 22 minutes right now. So there's that. Welcome to the NBA, October 24th. Emergency DeAndre Jordan start from the couch today. Let's get it. Sadiq Bey looks good, I agree. I think they're going to be leaning on him a bit now. He appears to be healthy. He's missed like 500 straight days of basketball before 2 days ago. I mean, Zion's going to be in for it here. I'd like to see like 3 years ago Zion against Wemby, the just like human bowling ball bouncing off of the twig. They're like the opposite in humans in shape. It's so weird. I got nothing else here for the Pels.
Same.
So we're going to get to the final game of the slate. The Washington Wizards, the Dallas Mavericks. Wizards are a dreadful basketball team. Most of their players are not very good. They aren't in a very good spot. And if we pull up the boom bust tool, the highest owned guy for the Wizards is CJ McCollum at 7%. He's also 7% optimal. The next highest owned guy is less than 3. Do you anticipate rostering any of the Wizards today? I'd like to avoid these guys like the plague.
No, I did in my high stakes single entry lineup last slate. I did play Middleton at like 1%. That ended up working out, but not really on him in this matchup against Dallas. You did see he was pacing for about 30 minutes. McCollum, same thing. So, like if I had to play someone in Washington, I think it would be one of the two bets, either Middleton or McCollum. Sarr, they mentioned that he was on a limit, only played 25 minutes. And he's way too pricey in my opinion too. You did see Bagley play the backup center over Vukcevic, but still don't know if I can get to Bagley here. I think if I'm going to play like a backup center, probably rather take a shot on like Goga Batadze. Trey Johnson had a decent role off the bench, played 26 minutes. He's unowned, but still the price point is not like amazing on him. He's 4.9K. No. So overall, I think like Washington's right there, like Detroit is one of my least favorite teams to get to.
Couldn't agree more. I have nothing else to add. Dallas, on the other hand, We're doing the PJ Washington experience today. This time, 34% owned at 5K. Still a bit underpriced is PJ Washington. Small forward, power forward eligible. I completely agree with the ownership. I'll be going right back to him. He looks like one of the better options today, just relative to salary. Are you PJ Washington-ing again today?
Yes, still underpriced. He's not a free square, but he's still underpriced here at 5K. Picked up 2 quick ones as well last game, so lost out in some minutes and the blowout. Definitely would have played over 30 minutes. So love the matchup. Again, still underpriced. So yes, I once again high on PJ Washington.
Are you high on Anthony Davis? Because he is equally as owned to PJ Washington today. 9,800 power forward center. I'm curious your thoughts on AD, and how do you feel about him with relation to Wemby?
Yeah, I like AD. I think factoring in ownership, maybe a slight preference to Wemby. But yeah, AD, I mean, he made, like, the ball was in his hands a lot. He made 54 passes. Again, there were quotes about kind of using him as like a Sabonis role. So I think the assist numbers are going to be up a little bit on Anthony Davis as well. Obviously lost time, did the blowout. But like, man, there's no one that can stop him on the Washington front court. Yeah, I love the matchup here for AD. Ownership's there, but it should be. And he's got power forward eligibility too.
Fast team in Washington as well. You know, some extra possessions in this one. And yeah, AD should just cut through this front court like butter if he wants to. There's a lot more ownership coming into Dallas. Cooper Flagg around 15. Derek Lively just shy of it. Klay Thompson around 15. Najee Marshall north of 15. Feels a little lofty on Najee Marshall, but 3,700 guard forward eligibility just kind of fits into everything possible, allows you some flexibility later in the night. What do you like here for the rest of these guys?
Yeah, I like Cooper Flagg. Again, saw like 32 minutes in a blowout. Definitely would have paced for a bit more there. Had a solid game, nothing crazy. Guard forward eligibility. So 20% ownership, I think, is reasonable there. I kind of agree with you on Najee Marshall. I think he's going a little bit over-owned. Again, he completely burned me as my last guy in last time out, going for like 4 fantasy points in 20 minutes. But yeah, he should play over 20 minutes here. And again, is relatively cheap. And then I kind of like Derek Lively as a contrarian play, 4.8K. Was just in massive foul trouble the entire game. Yeah. Only played 10 minutes. No Daniel Gafford. The matchup is way better here against Washington. I think assuming he avoids foul trouble, you could see 25 plus minutes for sure, maybe even close to that 30-minute mark. So I'm higher on Lively than his current ownership. And the only other guy getting ownership is Klay Thompson, 4.6K. Don't really have a strong take there on him. Minutes weren't amazing and, you know, kind of washed at this point in his career, but he's still playable because of the salary.
I don't think I have anything else to add here. I agree with you there. I like the Lively shout. I just like too many centers today, but the game script for him in game 1 makes me like him a little bit more here for game 2. Before we touch on anything else for the slate, because we got a couple more minutes left, I want to get this question out before we're in our little transition. DK, tell the people what you've got going on. Tell the people where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me over on Tails. I have content for Daily Fantasy Sports, as well as player props. So sports books, pick'em stuff, all that good stuff. Check me out over on Tails. Posting a lot of free content there as well. So yeah.
Sweating some Blazers, I see.
Yeah, I got a little SGP there. Kind of the thought process there is like Golden State goes small, Clinton gets played off the court, Grant gets extended. So 0.1 units, a little long shot there. Yeah.
I like it. Big thread.
Yep.
A couple days ago, everything you need to know for props. Got to be following here, guys. Just come on over, hit the follow button. You'll get anything he's putting out for free. If you want to get a little bit more, hit the VIP access button. That should help as well. All right. I'm going to refresh this page. We're going to look back at the sim results prior to what we ran before. We remember what we saw here. Let's see if it looks any different. If I can get this sim run before we end up having to leave. Generic question. Who ends up being the highest scorer on today's slate?
I'm going to say Wemby.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to not want to go that direction. I would be barring injury, I'd be very, or just the fact that they kick the shit out of them, so he plays like 24 minutes. But he strikes me as like I feel like he's going to be a 2+ fantasy point per minute guy today.
Yeah, I would not be surprised at all if he's like 2.5. Like that's definitely possible.
And I'm here for it too. All right, let's see what these top lineups are looking like. Coming up in the next couple minutes, the most notorious man in daily fantasy sports, Greg Ehrenberg, is going to be here with all the inside tidbits that you guys will be looking for. Chris Spags will be joining him. And then I get to work with Greg tonight from 7 to 8 on playback while we watch the games that he has the inside information on. If you're not watching Greg, how else are you going to get that kind of info? I'm not entirely sure. I see Greg here. Greg's already on the back. I could see him. He's here. He's on the phone. He's got two phones, one on each ear. I can't even imagine what kind of news he's getting.
He's getting all the inside information right now.
Collect call from Rikers Penitentiary. Will you accept the charges? Yes. Yes, I will. What do you got for me, Chauncey? What do you got for me, Terry? Nikhil Alexander Walker still showing up in 96% of the top 150 lineups. Anthony Davis, second. And Andrew Wiggins, third. Victor Wembanyama, fourth. Jock Landale, fifth. One of those things is not like the other. I do like Jock Landale, but boy, oh boy, does his name stand out there.
Yeah, that surprises me a little bit, but yeah, I mean, again, he's good value, so I get it.
Yeah. Josh, what position are you paying down at the most? I assume it's going to be the guard spots just because of the amount of like Wemby and AD I'm anticipating having.
Yep. And then
probably like small forward if I had to guess.
Yeah, and we might get more guard value too with Memphis. So
yeah, that'll change. If Ja gets ruled out, it changes the entire shape of today's slate. That will be a very different experience.
Yeah, so like,
does Greg have any info on the Toronto Rangers tonight? I doubt it. Spags, the Mina Kimes of Stokastic, and that's a compliment. I don't know what that could possibly mean. Nonstop super chats if his door gets kicked down during a live stream. Part of me wants to just pay to have that done.
Just swat him.
Surely the cost of paying somebody to kick his door down and replace the door would be better for us. Okay. Let's do one thing here. Let's see. Cleveland, Brooklyn is an 11-point line. Dallas are pretty sizable favorites. Houston, decent favorites. Is there going to be a weird upset today? I can't see Brooklyn beating Cleveland, so I think like most of the games, or I can't really see Washington messing with Dallas and Dallas, or San Antonio losing to New Orleans. But like in theory, one of those things probably happens.
Yeah. I guess if I had to pick like an upset, it would probably be Detroit over Houston. But yeah. Not a big fan of like I don't think we're going to see anything like the Utah Jazz the other night.
No, I did not see that one coming at all. I'm going to do this quick lineup build for Einsteinium, and then we're going to turn this one over to Live Before Lock. Davion Mitchell goes in. Interesting that Davion Mitchell goes into this lineup the moment that Chris Spags gets into the room. Known lover of Davion Mitchell, Mr. Spags. Mikal Bridges in at shooting guard. PJ Washington in at small forward. Paolo Banchero, that's some terrible spelling, in at power forward. DJ McCollum?
It has to be, right?
Gotta be.
Else?
I just wouldn't think to click his name because he's CJ McCollum.
Yeah.
You know? I don't typically think about him anymore because it's 2025. But let's get Jock Landale into the utility spot. Here we go. One run for Einsteinium. It's going to be negative. How negative will it be? 2% to the positive. I tried to be rude and I couldn't get it done. 2.1% sim ROI, 0.1% chance to win, 27% cash rate. I wouldn't play it, but there's something in the bones. DK, do you have anything else you want to add before we leave? It is 6 o'clock. It is live before lock time.
No, just have a good rest of your day, guys. And yeah, I'll see you all the next stream.
Boom. NBA Live Before Lock is now. Don't go anywhere. Same stream. These guys are already here. Come say hi. I'll make you say hi. Hi and hi.
Oh, hi.
Goodbye and goodbye. Later
guys. Good luck tonight.
See you guys.
See you guys.
All right, guys, time for the live before lock portion of the show. Myself and Spags, we've got you for the next hour, and then Josh and I'll be over on playback for the subsequent hours you just mentioned. We'll be reacting to any kind of late swap, late breaking news, which I have a feeling, Spags, this could be the first late swap season, first late swap slate of the entire season, because we've got some key players who are questionable. I'm curious to get some of your thoughts on that. But guys, do us favors. You're watching, you like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have any questions for us at all over the course of the show, hit me up in Discord. If you are a Stokastic sub, if you're watching on YouTube and want to leave a super chat, we'll certainly be checking out all of those as well. But Spags, what do you make of some of the injury situations for today? Because we've got John Morant questionable, Karl-Anthony Towns questionable. We've also got Josh Hart questionable. I'm wondering which injury situations are you keeping your eye on, and do you have any particular lean on any of them?
I mean, the Towns one's definitely going to be the biggest one for me. I'm getting a little bit of exposure to him, not as much as I might normally as a guy that does tend to be a little bit overprojected in my data versus some of the stuff industry-wide. But he had a nice showing the opening night. Felt like he could have certainly been a little bit better in terms of the actual results, but usage still there from Jalen Brunson for whatever it's worth for anybody who wants to chase him today. It seemed like a lot of production going OG Anunoby's way and Mikal Bridges. It isn't necessarily going to be there every night, but if you get Hart and Towns out, I think going back to those guys again looks like an option. Brunson would come up exponentially for me if you got both Towns and Josh Hart out. So I think that matters quite a bit, but frankly, with some of these guys getting ruled out today, I'm ready for like guys to randomly get ruled out. Like we're in the halfway point of the NBA season, even though we are literally in week 1.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing with the Cat situation, it's what does a questionable tag even mean, right? The Knicks' first game the other day, he was probable, questionable, doubtful. And at one point, the never before seen doubtful but expected to play tag. That's something we've never seen before on an NBA injury report, but that was a status for Cat the other day. And by the way, he went from doubtful but expected to play but questionable, which is also really bizarre. The entire thing was weird. So I don't know what to make of how serious his injury actually is, but he's dealing with a quad situation. And then also Josh Hart, who has a finger injury, and it's a finger injury and also a back injury. He is listed as questionable after he missed the opening day game. So lots to talk about on the slate. FanDuel also is including all of the games on their main slate. DraftKings just has the 7-game slate. Kind of curious from your point of view. Maybe it's biased because you're a adult who has children and responsibilities, unlike me, Spags. But do you prefer the 7-game slate that cuts off the late games, or do you prefer when the slates include all of the games?
I think whenever you can get a partial slate, I do prefer that by a little bit. It just makes it easier to sort of, pare down what we're trying to do. Frankly, for me too, as somebody, and I'm sure same for anybody else that does play with their own data at all, it is something where you have to do a lot more work to get the rates where you might want to go, especially in the beginning of the year when you add on 5 more games onto the total. So I'm cool with it being just the early slate. I get people that like it the classic way, but I do wish there were like Bill Simmons used to have the joke about a sports czar. I would love if there were like a DFS czar where it's like, all right, here's how we're just going to play it, boys. And it's the same thing across everything, because it's odd that you kind of have to know, like, oh, FanDuel does it this way, DraftKings does it this way, and scoring I get, but like the actual slates themselves, it's just, I think, confusing for consumers out there.
So I don't mind when the slates finish at different times. I really dislike baseball when they start at different times, because that is a total pain in the ass for me, scheduling content, and then also just the locks being at different times. That's overall kind of a headache. I do kind of like when the slates differentiate in terms of they're giving you different options. So it gives people a preference. If you have a preference as an individual player, you could make that decision for yourself. So I like people being given those options. So I like that they're a little bit different, as long as the finish time is different. Start time being different, total pain in the ass. When it's like one slate starts at 6:30 and one starts at 7. That was actually one of my biggest fears for today, Spags, that we were somehow going to get one of the slates was going to include the Milwaukee-Toronto and the other one wasn't, like that would have been a massive pain in the ass.
It does seem like a FanDuel thing to do. Like given baseball
Yes.
season and how that would go, they would lump in one random game like you're talking about. So I guess, yeah, it could have been worse, but who cares about Toronto, Milwaukee now at the 6:30 start time? That's a sad thing for those guys.
Yeah, which I assume is probably related to the World Series. I guess they're trying to get that game finished before the World Series starts. If I had to make an educated guess, because I can't remember a time there was an NBA main slate that just had a 6:30 start time. And since it's a home game in Toronto, I presume that has to be the reason why they went about doing that. But let's start getting into the slate. And once again, if you guys have questions for us, hit me up in Discord if you are a Stokastic sub. I want to know what you make of a couple of the chalk options on the slate, because we have two players on the DraftKings side of things who are very popular on the slate, Spags. We've got Andrew Wiggins projected for north of 40% ownership, and same with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. NAW, the little bit cheaper of the two. He's 4K compared to a $5,800 price tag on Andrew Wiggins. And of course, the big situation with the Atlanta Hawks, Kristaps Porzingis. I haven't read if this is an illness that's a reoccurrence of what he dealt with last year. I will say that it doesn't feel all that great that he went from not on the injury report to all of a sudden out for today after knowing that he had all those issues last year. So it definitely seems like a little bit of a red flag, but that's where NAW, potentially smaller lineups for Atlanta, more playing time ends up being the case for him in that scenario. But what do you make of the two really chalk options on the DK slate, Andrew Wiggins and Nickeil Alexander-Walker?
I mean, I'm getting them both above the field. Wiggins seemed like he would be the most chalky play of the day. And it's just really that he's a little bit too cheap at 5,800 on DraftKings for a role that he played about 32 minutes last game. And that was with him losing a few minutes early for foul trouble, I believe it was. Definitely could have gotten, it seemed like, to 33, 34 minutes if things went his way a little bit more. So the fact he's that cheap, the fact he was producing over 1 fantasy point per minute last year, I do worry a little bit with Norman Powell coming in that maybe the math's a little bit different than it was for Wiggins after he really went to Miami and became a reliable DFS play night to night, had pretty decent upside from time to time. Now Powell's coming in producing at a really high rate for one game, could kind of throw off the Wiggins math a little bit, but again, at his price, I think it's hard to not be at least with the field on him. And I got 54%. The sim I just ran. Alexander Walker, I get shooting guard, small forward, multi-position eligibility, a thing that our pal Josh Engelman always beats the drum of, and the importance that it has for being able to make lineups and make some of the sense of the value out there. But Alexander Walker, I'm not even sure that he's the biggest beneficiary of Ariza Shea and Porzingis being out. Like, it seems like Luke Kennard getting more minutes might be the thing. And Alexander Walker got big paid by them in the offseason, so I get it. But he's one of those dudes where, like, he used to put up such great fantasy production. Then he went to Minnesota and he really kind of learned his adaptation to what an NBA role player life is, where you're not getting all the shots. You're kind of just learning to play better defense and do some of that stuff. And that's sort of what Atlanta brought him in for. Like, in the last game for Atlanta, he was coming in when Dyson Daniels was off the court primarily. I'm just not sure he's as much of a gainer overall in terms of just the opportunity, even though if he starts, if he gets the court time, projection-wise at 4K, it'd be hard to ignore him.
So we just got some news. Miles McBride is starting for the Knicks tonight.
Okay.
I assume that means Josh Hart is out.
Well, Josh Hart's off the bench anyway.
But McBride, I wouldn't think of him as normally starting for the Knicks.
Well, over Huck Porty.
Oh, that is also a possibility. That's true.
Yeah, because Josh Hart, they had said in the preseason, was going to come off the bench. So I would think they move Huck Porty down. Cat's playing true five, which Huck Porty doesn't really inhibit him from the center stuff that he can do best. Like, he rebounded at over a 20% clip in the first game. So I don't think that him not being the nominal center matters. But, having McBride in, not having Huck Porty in, that's one less big out there who could take a few peripheral stats away if Cat does play.
Yeah, that's a good shout out. That could certainly be the case that it just means that Huck Porty is going to the bench. Or it could mean that it doesn't necessarily mean that other guys are in or out. So yeah, I think you're probably right on that. And myself, still TBD what ends up happening with the other guys. The Knicks did start Huck Porty and Towns in the front court of the first game of the season. And then they went with Brunson, Bridges, and Anunoby to fill out the rest of the lineup. So yeah, it is certainly possible that it's just Huck Porty that goes back to the bench here, unless it means that Cat is out, Huck Porty is starting, and then we'll see. At least the last we heard is that Towns and Hart are going to be game time decisions, And now we know that Miles McBride is going to be starting as well. So I'm really interested to see what this ends up doing to our projections for McBride. I guess even so, that is pretty subject to change depending on whether Hart and Towns are in or out. But what do you make initially of McBride just being in the starting lineup before we have that update on Hart and Towns?
I mean, certainly the fact that he'll be getting more minutes is always going to be a positive for any player. And, he is 4,100, has produced going back to last year about 0.83 fantasy points a minute with 17% usage, 15.5% assist rate. I would think that him starting, getting him more minutes definitely makes him look more appealing. I mean, he played 26 in the opener. So assuming that you get the same configuration, especially if you get Hart out again, he's probably going to get at least that 26. If Hart's in, I feel like McBride starting doesn't really matter that much because he's probably the first guy that would come out in a closing group. But if Hart's out and if Cat's out, especially, I think McBride projection wise would just absorb a lot that's just floating around now.
Yeah. Let's see. Miles McBride. What do we have him projected for before? Sure, it wasn't super significant. I don't know about you. I didn't think about Miles McBride really the entirety of today.
He was at 18.1, actually no, 17.7 fantasy points for Stokastic in a 21-minute projection, 21.8-minute projection.
In the past, when McBride has started for the Knicks, it's meant that he's played all of the minutes, but guess what? It's a different regime. Tom Thibodeau, sometimes he forgets he even has bench players he's allowed to make substitutions. So do you remember the Miles McBride game? He has an unbreakable NBA record. Do you know what it is?
No, actually, I don't know which one you're talking about now.
He played 47 and a half minutes in a game that he came off the bench, which is there's no way anybody will ever top that in a regulation game. So what happened is Jalen Brunson got hurt on the Knicks' first possession of the game. Thibodeau put McBride in place of Brunson, and he did not come out the rest of the game, Miles McBride. Nobody will ever do that. There will never be another player who plays more than 47 and a half minutes off the bench in a regulation game. So we will see what his rotations end up looking like tonight. But my initial thoughts on him at $4,100 is that he looks like a pretty good value option. And I didn't really get to give my take on the Andrew Wiggins and Nickeil Alexander-Walker situation because that Knicks news came out just as you had finished talking. I'm about even with the field on Wiggins. I've got overweights to the field on Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I do want to have a little bit of diversification off of NAW, and I think that Miles McBride could help with that because we have guys who are questionable, Spags. I don't want to have Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the first game of the slate because keep in mind, that game locks at 7 p.m. Eastern time. It is the only game that locks at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I don't want to have somebody who you guys could see without making any adjustments to the Sims. He showed up in 96% of lineups. I don't want to have one player taking up nearly all of my lineups, at least one lineup spot, when we could potentially see Hart and or Cat get ruled out. And is it fair to say that if those guys didn't play, that McBride would be a better option pretty easily over Nickeil Alexander-Walker then?
I mean, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a 24.5 projection in 20 or 30 minutes of projected playing time. Let's say McBride gets, I mean, Hart and Cat being out is going to be really big. I think they're going to look pretty close. It'd be just quick top of head math for me. But I agree, like, and Eric, our pal Eric Lindquist always talks about the stuff, the late swappability and the importance of that. And I know for you, Greg, you've done the video kind of outlining your process for it. I agree that giving up the flexibility on a value play that's, even his debut for Atlanta after getting the fat contract, 0.86 fantasy points per minute, not too much different than when he's been historically. He shot pretty poorly in that game, did Alexander Walker, but I just don't think he's a world beater at the stage of the career. I don't think we're getting 3K PJ Washington from Alexander Walker. I would agree that like losing that flexibility up top, there could be better value that opens up. Something could be weird with the Pelicans and could open up value there too as well with them now being down 2 bigs. So I just think there's some things and the unforeseen as well. It's a lot to give up for Alexander Walker as a player, but he will make lineups look good right now if you make them in the 6 o'clock hour.
Here's the scenario that's going to happen. I know this is how, and it's only inconvenient. The NBA updates, injury reports. As soon as our data team updates projections, 30 to 45 seconds after that, we'll get the Cat and Hart update, and it'll be like one of them's in, one of them's out, and then everything will be irrelevant, have to be updated again. That's my bold prediction for what happens next.
Would not be shocking. Whenever the NBA can make life more inconvenient, that's what it will do at every possible way.
Yeah, for people who are asking, Sean Mailer is asking, is Greg out on bail? Sort of. So here's the plea deal that I have, because as everybody knows, most of the FBI plays NBA DFS. This is a well-known fact, and a lot of them watch live before lock. So because they need to use this show to build their lineups, we've got a deal. While shows are going on, I'm allowed out. I have to wear the ankle bracelet, though. And then when shows end, I have to go back into the cage. So that's the deal we got working on right now. And yeah, we'll see what any kind of future updates end up bringing.
Bit aside though, for again, I know it's going to be hard to get you to break even the half joke here. Did anybody affiliated with anything ever reach out to you? Because like I keep seeing on Discord, people reposting your tweet, and like it's always like they're not sharp buddy who's like, this guy was in on it the whole time. Like, what's his deal? Like, did you ever hear from any government official or anything about the Rozier stuff?
Not yet. We'll see what happens in the future. I was anxiously watching the telecast at 10 a.m. the other day, wondering, will they announce my name?
Just to find out you're indicted, and they were like, you're not a big enough deal, so they don't even tell your representation. They're just like, oh, by the way, Greg Ehrenberg's going to jail for 50 years.
Yeah, I was wondering. I made popcorn for it. I was curious because I've never been apprehended by the FBI before. So there was a part of me, I was like, what's the order? Because I wanted to make sure I made breakfast first, because I was like, I don't want to be hungry if they arrest me. So I was like, do they show me getting arrested live on TV? Is it something where they just let you know? It's like how they used to do the draft, for instance. They would pull numbers out of the blood, and that's how you'd find you're going to fight in war. I didn't know. I didn't know if somebody was just going to show up at my door and arrest me. I didn't know if they would announce it on TV, and then I'd be like, all right, get my stuff together because I'm going, get the good lube in order, all that. Like, I just didn't know. I've never been in one of those situations before.
I mean, you're not the first Stokastic host where you're waiting for the cops to come to the door. It's just usually when Eric orders strippers and they come with the baton and they're all oiled up. All of a sudden, their shirt's open. It's a different situation for those ones. But for you, you got actual real concerns.
Yeah, it is very different, especially because Eric pays for his experience, whereas mine, I benefited handsomely.
He pays extra for the extra size baton, the larger one.
It is funny, too, because you could tell the people who are not on social media who are like, why would Greg be arrested?
Yeah, people don't keep up with your bits, which are now years long of bits you have going that you've built a wealth of cachet on.
Yeah. And again, this was good for the socials. I got 4,000 new followers over the last couple of days so far.
That's pretty crazy. That's not bad for somebody that puts in the work on Twitter. Now it's finally showing it. Just so people getting arrested and you having the precog ability.
I bet I've got a handsome $120 rev share payout coming to me too from the Twitter program.
You could 10,000x that if you have one of Elon's babies.
Yeah, it is. I don't get how that whole payout situation works, but like I'll see some people with like 600 followers that barely get impressions. They'll post, be like, look, I made $5,000 this month. Then I'll look at mine. It's like I had 20 million impressions for the month or something, and I get like $150. I never understand how the math works on those things. But let's move. Let me see if the projections are updated yet. If not, I want to tell you about how you all can get into our Stokastic projections and sims at a pretty nice discount, because we still have our OKC promo going on. So if you guys took advantage of the dollar deal, you liked our tools, maybe you made some money, and now that dollar deal has finished, and you want to know how you could get back in the mix for a discount, sign up with the promo code OKC, and you get any NBA monthly package 20% off. That's promo code OKC. Or if you play multiple DFS sports on our site and you want to take advantage of the all access packages, those are also 20% off with the promo code OKC. So take advantage of this offer. It is going to be ending on Tuesday. So if you do want to get a longer term package with us and get 20% off, make sure you sign up before Tuesday, but probably even preferably now, so you could win some money for tonight's slate and take advantage of everything like our late swap tools and all of that. We've got a projections update, Spags. Let's see what we've got here now. All right. So we have Miles McBride now, and I'll rerun the Sims here in a second as well. Miles McBride, we have in for 29 minutes and 23.5 fantasy points at $4,100. Keep in mind, this is still with Karl-Anthony Towns and Josh Hart projected in. This really makes me like Miles McBride because he already looks really good. and he has the potential to look even better, because now I'm looking at the 23.5 fantasy point projection for us. Now, all of a sudden, you take Cat and or Hart out, and then you're probably looking at 25 plus fantasy points for Miles McBride. I assume he's going to show up in a lot of lineups in the Sims, but I might even ROI boost him to get him into more lineups, give me more flexibility for swapping.
Yeah, McBride, I definitely have him projection-wise for myself pretty flat with where Alexander Walker is. So I think it's going to get more even for me. I did just rerun the sim, but I don't think I got the player pool right, because with only 1% pool exposure for McBride, I got him at 19%. So I imagine when that pool exposure goes up and the projections fully take when I rerun the sim, or what Greg does on the screen right now, yeah, McBride's probably right away at 20 to 33% play, at least, if not more.
Yeah, I presume I'm going to get to it in more than half of my lineups. You guys could see I'm rerunning the Sims right here on screen, and you'll see in a real time. It does look like our ownership just updated as well, so I think that should update the pool exposure for McBride, but I'll check here. Let's see. McBride, interesting. So McBride still only project for 12% ownership. I would think he's going to be higher than that. Maybe I'm wrong, though.
Yeah,
Does that surprise you, that number, 12%?
I've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and again, in my projection set, which uses stochastic minutes, but I do calculate a little bit differently. I've got Alexander-Walker at 24.3 and McBride at 24.1. And as you mentioned, that's with Hart and Towns both in the data set still. I'm surprised by it. I think they should be much flatter. Alexander Walker's getting paid a lot more money, like he was a free agent acquisition. The role should be a little bit bigger, and you're missing right now. You're missing high usage guys for Atlanta. You're not missing high usage guys for the Knicks until we get, or if we get Towns and Hart out. So I get it, but projection wise, they're real close for me. So I think the ownership should be closer.
Yeah, and this sim is going to be done updating in a second here, and then we'll get a good idea of what the data is getting to. And then also on my other computer, I'm running sims for FanDuel. So if people have FanDuel questions, I'll be able to address some of those as well. But hard to run while doing the show, two sims for two different sites at the same time. So doing it on a separate computer, so I will be equipped to give you guys any updates on the FanDuel side of things. But let's see, DraftKings, this is loading for us right now. I'll favorite the top 150 lineups. And yeah, McBride showing up in 72% of lineups now. So you'll see here with this update, 83% of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 72% of Miles McBride. Wiggins, still a decent amount of him at 48%, but he takes a little bit of a haircut now that McBride shows up a lot as a value option. Here's a trickle-down effect of this Spags, which makes sense. The other impact of getting a value option like Miles McBride into a lot of lineups. Also, by the way, if he actually is showing up in 3/4 of lineups, then no need to do any kind of ROI boosts when he's getting that kind of ownership in or that kind of exposure in lineups. But Anthony Davis and Wemby now also show up in 50+% of lineups because they become more accessible with the added value that we have on the slate. So I want to know from you now, we got the ability to more easily spend up for studs. Who's your favorite star to spend up for tonight?
So I'm getting Anthony Davis the most. I think the price tag at 9,800 is making him come in a little more availably than Victor Wembanyama. But so Wemby went so nuts. And Greg, I don't know how much you care about like a single game sample size, but the results just blew my mind. Wemby had 2.3 fantasy points a minute in that last game, which is like unsustainable. Obviously, even if you were as good as Nikola Jokic at the points where like there's no other Nuggets playing, you're still talking about like 1.9 fantasy points a minute. So it's a lot. But Wemby does look even better. He also had 77% true shooting in that first game. Like there are things you could point to that are unsustainable for him. But he looked fantastic. He's grown. He's playing a Pelicans team that is down bigs, and Zion's going to be out there and fairly blockable despite whatever results he might get. So even though I'm getting Anthony Davis more, and I did get him in the sim, I just ran with the updated McBride and Alexander Walker stuff. Got Davis at 61%, Wembanyama at 50%. But you're right. The ownership for both these guys is going to come up now because it's way easier to afford them, and they both project over 50 fantasy points. And there aren't a lot of guys in the slate with the projection in that ballpark.
Also, first run of sims for FanDuel that I did here, I ended up getting to 59% of Miles McBride. So he also looks very good on the FanDuel side of things, even though there are more options because of the FanDuel slate running later into the night, including all of the games. So for myself on the high end, Let's see what I ended up getting to on the last update I did. And you could see in the Stokastic tools, without making any updates, it is so close. It's 52.7% of AD, 51.3% of Wembanyama. And I think that of all the things that we got right on Wednesday, Spags, being overweight to a modestly on Wemby was probably number one amongst them, because going into that game, other than just that he had a good fantasy game, he went into that game 13-1 to an MVP. He's like 3-1 to an MVP now. Part of that is because the public is super high on Wemby. Part of it also is he looked like he might be the best player in the NBA right now on that opening day. He's able to do everything. And then, of course, we know he's a force on the defensive end, in addition to the numbers he provides on offense. He is so good, he might just will the Spurs to being a like mid playoff seed in the West, which if that's the case, with all the hype around him, how much the public seems to like him, I think that Wemby is super, super live to an MVP this year. I do wonder if he ends up coming in. So we have him projected for 22% ownership. I do have a gut feeling that with all the hype around him, Spags, he ends up coming in higher owned than the ownership projection, just because people are so pro Wemby right now.
I think you're right. I mean, even when this morning, one of the first runs here before the value really opened up, it was like Wemby at 12. And that was at a point where really there wasn't any great value plays. I figured Wemby would get to 25%. Now that Wemby's projected closer to 25%, it does feel like him getting, 33 to 50 seems likely. And that should pull a bit from Anthony Davis, who I think will get slightly forgotten. And maybe the enthusiasm for Cooper Flagg, who projects fairly well, could keep AD in check. So it's weird because, you pointed out very astutely on Wednesday where, you mentioned the ownership being so low for Wemby compared to Giannis. I think for this slate, it might be a thing where Wemby picks up a little bit too much steam because it's so easy to get to him. And there is a lot of enthusiasm to play him now. And again, he played unsustainably in that first game. Like, you just can't put up the numbers that he did overall without, things breaking incredibly well. And 78% true shooting in that game is like breaking incredibly well. I think AD could be underplayed. Like, even guys like Cade, it's not a great matchup, but guy back in Texas, like that's a guy that you could pay up for too. I agree the ownership might concentrate a little too much on Wemby, despite all the flowers you gave him. Like, he's a great, very fun play, but San Antonio's also got a lot of guys that like to get shots up besides him.
They're my two favorite pay-up options on the slate, but I think I'm going to go with a little bit more of AD just because I'm going to make minor tweaks to the contest generator to up the exposure to Wemby, which I think is going to bring him down a little bit just because of what I said before. I think there's a pretty good chance that he ends up being a little bit more popular just because of the narrative and the hype around him right now, which is absolutely totally warranted. But it's one of those things that kind of goes beyond data because, things like ownership projections, it's very, very based on data. And sometimes there are situations like this that I think kind of go outside of data. Like, there's non-data reasons that people just want to play Wemby. So I'm going to be overweight to Wemby. I'm going to be overweight to AD, but between the two of them, if I could only pick one, I'm going to side a little bit more towards Anthony Davis. Coach DFS is asking his normal question to us, Spags. He wants to know, who are the must locks on today for a DraftKings GPP? So if you're building a GPP lineup right now, who are the players that coach has to have for that one lineup?
Alexander Walker, McBride, Wiggins. I'd put Jock Landale up there too. I think he had a little more of a minute ceiling, fouled out last game. I think he could have played like 5 more if things broke the right way. I think that would be my group. And then you could sort of get rotate whatever pay up options around that. PJ Washington pretty close too.
Yeah, so definitely whatever your preference is between, I think Wemby could be super, super popular in single entry fields. Don't have an issue with rostering him, but wouldn't say he's a must play or anything like that. McBride, definite yes. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, also a definite yes. Make sure you have a little bit of flexibility to make swaps as well. John Moran is questionable in an 8 p.m. game, so that's something Spags and I are going to have to touch on a little bit as well. What we might want to do in the event that John Moran is out and how we might want to prep our lineups for that kind of situation. But, I'm going to say those two. Let's see. Who else in my exposures? I don't just want to say Wiggins. There's other guys I like initially from the Orlando-Atlanta game, like Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero, but also might tamp down their exposure a little bit to give myself more flexibility. Must play. Yeah, I'm just going to stick with, I'll say AD, Wiggins, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and Miles McBride for now. I have those 4 in. Mr. Cool Cam. Oh, sorry. What was that, Spags?
No, I think that's right. I think those ones are definitely it. And I would say, like, to me, Landale and PJ Washington pretty close in terms of, I mean, they're guys against a lot of lineups. I don't know if they need to be in a single entry or locks in a single entry.
We got a question here from Mr. Cool Cam. Wants to know favorite players at each position for FanDuel. Let's go back and forth, Spags. You tell me your favorite players at each position for DraftKings, and I'll give my favorite players at each position on FanDuel, starting at point guard. That is going to be, well, I'll use Miles McBride over at shooting guard. So at point guard, I'm going to say Drew Holiday on FanDuel. Who do you have as your favorite overall point guard on DraftKings?
It would be Miles McBride. He's point guard, shooting guard, but I'll give a different shooting guard because we could do that. But McBride, I have 74% of my next closest in the sim I just ran is 15% Derek White. So it is a chasm between Miles McBride and the next point guard.
Shooting guard, that will be Miles McBride for me on FanDuel.
On DK, Alexander Walker, shooting guard, small forward, 76% exposure in the top 150 here for Stokastic, which is just ahead of McBride at 74.
Small forward for me, that is going to be Cooper Flagg. I know he had a somewhat disappointing first game, but with that said, there were some pretty good positives to like from a DFS standpoint. He pulled down a bunch of rebounds. He had 10. He didn't get his shot to fall, so he finished with 10 points and 10 rebounds, but on just a normal shooting night, he would have had like 18 and 10 on that game, and he's only priced at $6,500 on FanDuel. He's got a great matchup against the Wizards. So Flagg, he's just underpriced opening the year at $6,500 on FanDuel. Same deal that we had the other day. So going to go back to the well here. Cooper Flagg for me at small forward on FanDuel. DraftKings small forward. What do you got there?
I mean, I would say Wiggins is the obvious winner here, 53%. Alexander Walker is small forward eligible, so he would be an option, but we already talked about him in shooting guard.
Power forward for me, that is going to be Wemby. So here's where the Wemby versus AD debate to me is way different on FanDuel. The extra fantasy point you get for the defensive stats, that as good as Wemby is on DraftKings, that's just insane amount of additional value to add to him on FanDuel. I don't know what his price tag is going to look like at the end of the year in a couple years, but he could realistically be a guy who has like 2 steals and 4 blocks per game. He might have to be priced like 14,000 on FanDuel every single slate. As odd as it is to say, 12,000 feels like an underprice for Wemby with that scoring. So Victor Wembanyama at power forward on FanDuel. How about power forward for you on DK?
I think it would be the other pay-up option we talked about, Anthony Davis. Got him in 61% of the top 150 I just ran. Fields at 36. So, yeah, Davis facing Washington. We don't necessarily hold Washington a ton of esteem, but Anthony Davis had a ton of usage in that first game. Also shot poorly, much like Cooper Flagg. Was rebounding well. He had the ball in his hands a lot. I think AD looks like a strong play today on DraftKings.
All right. And now finally at center, that for me would also be Wemby, but already mentioned him. Then it's kind of congested. There's a lot of guys who are pretty similar, but I'll say Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, Wemby, I got 50% of at center, but we've talked enough about him. Jock Landale, I got at 42%, Fields at 16. So I think it's a nice way to save money is playing Jock Landale. And I think he's going to be out there a lot. You still have no Edie, you still have no Brandon Clark. Obviously, Jaren Jackson, they could go that way and go with him at the 5, but it seemed like they wanted to play Jock Landale a good amount of traditional center in that first game for Memphis.
All right. The next question that we have here, it is from Dazed. He wants to know, who is the most popular player that I'm completely fading? That's very rare that there's NBA DFS doesn't have variance in the same way that like baseball does or football to a lesser extent. It's very rare that somebody's going to be 50% owned or 40% owned in NBA DFS and then I'll have 0% of them. So yeah, there's nobody who's super popular that I have 0% of across 150 lineups. Is there anybody who you don't like at all that's popular today, Spags, or maybe just a stance on somebody you want to be underweight to the field to?
No, I mean, I did try to mute some of my exposure to guys I was getting crazy amounts of, like Washington, like PJ Washington, like McBride. I kind of capped them at a more reasonable level. But nobody I'm actively moving away from. Yeah, I mean, Alexander Walker confirmed starting as well. I think the guys that stand out to me that you could get a lot of currently that you maybe don't want to would be the Cedric Coward, Trey Johnson type guys that like kind of projected well or might project a little bit over because they had a really hot first day of shooting that won't stick. Coward in particular had over like 100% true shooting in that game because he played really well, knocked down some shots that, add more onto the percentage of what true shooting is where you weight 3-pointers more. But I think really for me, I'm playing it mostly straight in terms of exposure besides capping a few guys.
The next question that we have here, it is a super chat from Stan Demand Can. He wants to know if he could see the FanDuel ownership projection. So yes, pulled these up on screen. Here's what we got for the latest FanDuel ownership projections. FanDuel, I had DraftKings selected there. All right, so for FanDuel, pretty spread out. You've got Cooper Flag, 36% owned. He's the only guy 30+% owned on FanDuel, Spags. Then you've only even got a handful of players north of 20% owned on FanDuel. That's Drew Holiday, James Harden, Derek Queen, Wemby, who I think is going to be higher than the 23% mark, Evan Mobley, Amen Thompson, and Bam Adebayo. But ownership generally pretty spread out over on the FanDuel side of things, and also the latest DraftKings ownership. We've got now Wiggins at 41%. We've got Anthony Davis at 36%, NAW at 35% now, PJ Washington 30%, Derek Queen at 29%, Wemby at 23%, Castle at 20%. So look at this. Even in the latest update, where's McBride?
Where closer to 20, maybe?
Only 6. Really interesting. I think he's going to be more popular than that.
Honestly, so did you notice yesterday Wiggins being like 75% owned in the big tournament? And it was a 2-gamer, it's a little bit different. But I really thought, like, to me, that felt like an AJ Mitchell was really highly owned too. Again, it's a 2-gamer versus, a relatively larger slate, much larger on FanDuel. I feel like Alexander Walker is going to get jammed in more than this. And McBride maybe as well. I think if you get hard out, McBride's number comes up a lot more. But I don't know, man. I just feel like the field for this is going to be more concentrated because it's felt like more concentrated on every slate so far on the relative projection values.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if McBride's only 6%. We'll see, though. We'll see. Maybe the prop lines are low on him, and I just hadn't picked up on that yet. Big Boy I, why aren't you weighing in on the 4 late games? So we have a little bit in passing, but there's nobody who's questionable for the 4 late games, right? We don't have anybody who's prominent that's on the injury report for those games. Also, it's not on the DraftKings slate, but I mean, some of the guys definitely matter for FanDuel, like Luka, for instance. But overall, I look at my exposures and it's for FanDuel. I did mention that Drew Holiday is my most rostered point guard over on FanDuel. So that's somebody from the 4 late games. But yeah, otherwise, there just aren't as many talking points for the late games, considering that once again, aren't on the DraftKings slate. We don't have the injured. There's not a single even questionable player that doesn't matter for the late games. So yeah, there's just less talking points there. But one injury that we have not touched on yet, Spags, that I do think is pretty important for us to hit on. What are you going to do with Ja Morant, who is questionable and seemingly unlikely that we're going to get an update on him before lock?
I am getting some Ja Morant now, which I'm hoping will give me some swappability. That said, for Ja Morant, it's a big one because in that first game, Javon Small's a guy that initially looked like he might be a play projection-wise. I think projections got a little muted for him. It didn't end up mattering very much in that first slate. But he played a ton of minutes out there. He played basically every minute Ja Morant wasn't on the court. Morant finished last game at 28.7 minutes. Javon Small, 19 and change. I assume Javon Small would become your starter. No guarantee that he would close, but he'd have a pretty good shot at it. And he was a guy that I would say produced at a level similar to a Walter Clayton Jr. In college, like guys that got good usage, guys that assisted at a decent clip, rebounded a little bit. I think Clayton rebounds a little bit more, but I view those guys as kind of similar players to how they performed in college. If Javon Small were in play as a starter, I think he'd be a really interesting play and would probably be one of the better values on the slate. So I assume Morant goes. I feel like it's early enough in the year. I'd be surprised for him to be ruled out, but it is the NBA. And if Morant were out, I really think Javon Small would be one of those plays where you'd feel bad, like having Alexander Walker potentially feel bad about having Miles McBride because Small might be a guy who would put up like a monster number, filling in all that usage that Morant leaves behind.
Yeah, so here's where I'm split on it. I think the most likely scenario is that Morant plays, but there's so much more upside in DFS if he sits and we're prepared to late swap off of him. So it's like, even if I think Morant is 80% likely to play, is there more upside in me building some lineups around the 20% scenario and backloading my lineups just a little bit? So I'm not necessarily taking John Morant out, but I am going to tamp down some of my exposures to players in the 7 p.m. games just to give myself a little bit more flexibility. By the way, Josh Hart says he will try to play today. So take that for what it's worth. He's going to try to play, and no update yet on Karl-Anthony Towns. But what do you make of Josh Hart attempting to play basketball today?
I mean, Josh Hart attempting to play, I presume that means he's going to be mostly full go, but he's, going to be a bench player this year. That was a conscious decision in the preseason. It's not just because he's banged up that he wouldn't be starting. I think he's not a player I want to play today, coming off the bench at his price tag and all of that. But I do think him being in, there's potential for him to cut into McBride's minutes. He could close over him, potentially, even if he does play less minutes overall. Right now, Stokastic has him for a 28.4 minute projection. Might be a little bit lofty, but he's probably going to play, I would say, at the very least 20, most likely mid-20s, no matter what.
Yeah, I think just enough value is opened up on the slate to where he isn't all that interesting of somebody to be getting to. But obviously, the bigger impact is that kind of prevents McBride from being somebody who might be projecting for like 26 or 27 fantasy points now that he's in, unless we find out that, Cat is out in the next few minutes or anything like that. Let's see. Was there any other updates that came in, or just the Josh Hart one? Nothing on Cat yet. Best guess, does Cat play or sit?
I think he plays, given the fact that he's got a better tag technically than last time, where he's at least briefly doubtful the last slate. Now he's only been Q tag all day. He looked fine like last game. I know that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but you don't have a lot of bigs. You don't really necessarily need them against Boston, so that's not really a precluding thing. I hope he plays, because it would just really throw the math off for this entire thing a little bit too early.
I like chaos, so I hope he sits, but I think the most likely scenario is he plays. Because what you said before, it more often than not, if somebody has an injury that they play through and then they're still on the injury report for that same injury for the next game, unless there's a scenario where, like they aggravated, they're not able to finish the game, I tend to think that they're going to be playing. And like you said, he seemed fine last game, so I'd be kind of surprised if he's not able to play through. I think this is one of these scenarios where, as much as the NBA has been, a little bit of hot water with some of the gambling stuff as of late, they do really like for teams to list anybody on the injury report who's dealing with any kind of injury. And I think that's probably more so why Cat is on the injury report than any other reason, especially because the Knicks massively fucked up their injury report the other day. So I also think he's going to end up playing today. Jeff Williams left us a super chat. Jeff wants to know, playing PJ Davis or Şengün. All right, so you have the choice of PJ Washington, Anthony Davis, or Alperen Şengün. That's Anthony Davis for me tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you're these guys are all different price points, but I would say it's Anthony Davis. Şengün feels a little bit like a point chase. Just he had a great game first time out. Again, there were reports all offseason about how well he's played, but the underlying usage wasn't like that much improved. I kind of think he got a little lucky for one spot, and I like Şengün a lot. I would go Anthony Davis, I think, pretty easily out of that group.
All right, let's see what else we got for questions.
It was playing PJ Davis or Şengün. So would you play Anthony Davis even though you have theoretical slightly negative correlation with PJ Washington, I guess?
Oh, got you. My bad. I misread that. I thought this was a 1v1v1 question. Yes, Davis over Şengün. The projection gap is Şengün looked really, really good in the Rockets' first game. I'm definitely skeptical that he's just going to be some sharpshooter who's knocking down threes from all over the place. So I still think that Anthony Davis is going to be the better fantasy producer of the two. I lean towards him, but if Şengün is just going to be a guy who could knock down threes this year, which once again, I don't think is the most likely scenario, but if it happens, all of a sudden he becomes like a low-end MVP sort of candidate, like somebody who's getting like back-end, like 8th, 9th, 10th place down ballot votes or something like that. But I'm going to go with Anthony Davis with what we know for now.
Yeah, same.
Let's see the next question that we have here. It is from Win. He wants to know, Queen at center with no DeAndre from the Pelicans on FanDuel at $3,900. Yes. So DeAndre Jordan, who was signed by the Pelicans this afternoon, is not going to be active for the Pelicans. As a result, that secures the playing time a little bit for Derek Queen. I think that Queen now looks like a serviceable value option on both DraftKings as well as FanDuel, Spags.
Yeah, I think he looks okay. I mean, 4K price tag, would love to see him be a little bit cheaper because he is a guy that I think there's a chance he could have to adjust a little bit. Like, he's really a usage dominant player. And I don't know that he's going to get a ton of that with Zion there, with Trey Murphy still a guy that we know can spike much higher usage than he had in game one. Jordan Poole also had under a 20% usage rate that first game. I just don't know how much is left behind for Derek Queen, but you know, he's got the opportunity to get on the floor now. He also was banged up in a lot of the preseason, so I don't think the minute ceiling is super high for him. He's not a guy for me projection-wise that's coming up meaningfully, but I get the logic.
We also got a question here from... Why is this not loading here? Oh, there we go. I didn't have a site selected. All right, so we got a super chat here from Malukar. Malukar wants us to enter his FanDuel lineup in for him, so let's plug this in, see how it comes out for Malukar. Let's change this to large contest. All right, what is Malukar asking? He's got DiVincenzo and Harden at point guard. Okay. Harden, DiVincenzo. He's also got Coward and Powell. And Powell. I like that you have a placeholder from Memphis here. I think he's somebody who's probably going to be worth swapping out if Morant ends up playing. But at least for now, I'm fine with him being in there as a placeholder. You've got Moody at small forward. I am not interested in playing Moody today. This lineup isn't going to come out well, Malukar. But we'll keep going. He's got...
Also,
Powell.
Coward, again, people see the box score. He only had 13% usage in that game. He shot incredibly well. He hit free throws. I just would really caution against Coward being one of those guys. Like, maybe he gets there if Morant's out, but I think it really goes more Small's way. Coward, he jumped out in my data, and I feel like for everybody else out there, I just feel like he's a trap.
Did I miss something? All right, so he's got Harden and DiVincenzo. Did that. Coward Powell. Did that. Moody Wiggins. Wemby. Yeah, you're missing one guy. We'll just see who fits in after we're done. He said FanDuel. Am I crazy, or is there somebody missing there?
2, 4, 6. No. DiVincenzo, Harden, Coward, Powell.
It's a FanDuel lineup.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, he is missing one. He's missing a power forward.
All right, I'll just plug in Boncaro. He projects the best of all the players who are available there. So plug in Boncaro, and they'll run the sim and see how this looks. Could be wrong, but I'm fair. Yeah, negative 50% sim ROI. So number one thing to change, Malukar, take out Moody. Take out Moody. Big Sus 420. All right. Lots of popular talking points there. So Big Sus 420, who is apparently very online. He wants to know the single entry best value play. That's Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yeah. I mean, I think he feels a little more solid than McBride now that we know that Hart's in. But I think those guys are still close enough for me in the projections that they're pretty 1-to-1.
And then let's see. One other super chat here from JR. JR has 15 lineups in the $8 on DK. Should I seek help if I play 85% of Sadiq Bey? I'm rerunning my lineups right now. I will say 85. I don't have an issue with Sadiq Bey, but 85% seems like a lot more of Sadiq Bey than you need to have of him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess you're hoping that he kind of becomes the 5 or he/Herb Jones fill-in, which did happen a little bit at the end of the second quarter last game. And I think actually closing group 2 was somewhat similar. It's possible, but I think Bey gets a little bit over chased here just because people know the name and he's like, oh, he's back, but he's gone for a year and change. I don't think we need to go to Sadiq Bey. Super heavy today.
DeAndre Hunter out again today. Interesting. Is it going to be another Tyson slate? Do you have the balls to go back to Tyson after he started really well, but then got in foul trouble and then just kind of got scripted out of the game?
He's one of those guys where I think you really want nobody available on the team. And then that's sort of when he spikes. I mean, that's when he spiked last year and had like a monster day. At 4K, he's not as good of a play, I don't think, as Alexander Walker and as McBride, but he's not super far off, if I had to guess.
Considering that there aren't as many value options in the front court, assuming he starts, we don't know the starting lineup yet. He is going to be far less owned than he was last slate because people got burned by him. I think he is a decent bounce back option to get to in tournaments, and people are going to be very sour about wanting to play him.
I agree. I mean, buying when there's blood in the streets in DFS never really going to be a bad thing. And he locked 7:30, which is the same time as McBride. So, yeah, I can see it.
All right, let's see. Was there another? Oh, yeah, a couple more super chats. We've got, we're at 14. I'm wicked late today. Queen or Goga or equal on DraftKings. Queen over Goga for me.
Yeah, I think there's more opportunity for Queen. Goga projects decently well, but it's really crowded for Orlando now. Like bringing Bane in, I think it's not great arithmetic for anybody who's not the top three.
And then we've got another super chat here. Oh, a bunch of them. They keep coming in. We've got one here from the Pooper Flex. No question. This is just let's see. Was there message retracted? It said. All right, well, Pooper Flex, if you had a question you wanted to ask us, just throw it into the YouTube channel. I'll be on the lookout for it. But looks like he pulled his question back here. Del Toro 420i FanDuel GPP by position. Yes, I'll read that back off for you. So I had for myself at point guard, Drew Holiday. At shooting guard, Miles McBride. At small forward, Cooper Flagg. At power forward, Victor Wembanyama. And at center, Bam Adebayo. Joski 24, best 8,500 or less point guard, shooting guard on FanDuel that is not James Harden. All right, let's look at some of my exposures. 8,500 or less. Can't be Harden, though. I guess I'll say Amin Thompson, although you're leaving a little bit of salary on the table there. But yeah, Amin Thompson. And then Pierre, another one with no, let's see. Did he leave some? He also didn't leave. Just if you guys are just trying to give us money, we appreciate it. If Eric was here, he'd take his clothes off and dance. But if you do have a question for us, throw it into the YouTube chat, and I'll be on the lookout for any of those that come in. Also, if you guys have not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're looking for some bets in addition to all the DFS content that we offer here, I already told you about the OKC promo that's going on. Head on over to tails.bet. I am running my bankroll building content over there, just like I did last year on Twitter, but I'm doing it this year on Tails. So it's even easier to tail all those bets because as I post them, if you got notifications turned on, it gets sent right to your phone. And then you can just one click, tap on it. It's going to load the bet slip into the book that has the best odds, and you can bet it from there. So go follow that over there. Totally free. Either go to tails.bet or download the Tails app. And if you really like the experience on Tails, leave us a 5-star review and say some nice stuff about us so we can continue to grow that app and give it more features for you guys. All right, next question here. JEW, if I was, okay, so for the 50 cent DK mini max, should it be more uniques and cap any guys? All right, so it's hard for me to say caps because I don't know exactly what kind of exposures you're getting to. Jay Nevi also left a super chat with no question there. But JEW, so I would say for caps, it's kind of a personal preference in terms of what you feel comfortable with. I'm going to be tamping down Nickeil Alexander-Walker just a little bit to give myself more flexibility. As far as uniques, you could go and I think 2 would make the most sense if you want to diversify your lineups, but you could also put it on 3 and then just check to see what that does to some of your lower end sim ROI lineups. M Grizzly, how much NAW do I want to get to? I'm going to be boosting him down a little bit, by the way, which I just touched on before, but still he's going to be in, well over half my lineups. I just didn't want the initial 90% I was getting to in the Sims, but do you have a idea of what your final exposure is going to be to NAW?
Yeah, I'm capping some of the guys that were particularly unavoidable to me at 65%. So I think it's a threshold I'm comfortable with, but general rule of thumb, I feel like is what the probability you expect them to hit. I feel like that's always the best way to look at it. Secondary rule of thumb would be what's their projection. That should be your cap for exposure. But the sim does a lot of that work for you. So I try not to mess around too much. I feel like 2-3 uniques on the sim is probably enough.
Let's see what else we have. Oh, Jorge. Jorge wants to know best 3 plays for the 888 today and also best contrarian play. All right. Best 3 overall plays for the 888. I mean, for contrarian play, I'm going to say Miles McBride now that he's not actually popular. For other three options, I'm going to say Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Anthony Davis. Who else would you add to the mix?
Best contrarian play. I'm not sure. Let's see. I'm just going through my numbers real fast for contrarian. I actually like Jared Allen a little bit as a contrarian play. Ben Saraf. I'm actually curious your thoughts about Ben Saraf. The other three guys, I think I agree with your take. Are you playing Ben Saraf at all today? Because I'm getting a little bit more, and I think Stokastic doesn't view him as a great play, so I'm a little apprehensive about it. But Ben Saraf looked pretty good. I thought Igor Demine also looked pretty good. The issue is that they're competing for the same role. Did you get either of those guys?
I did not. He just doesn't project well enough for me to really end up. I had a couple lineups with him the other day, which ended up being, fine. There ended like he was really solid. There was just overall better plays that ended up showing up on the slate. But I am not playing him today.
Okay, I definitely am playing some Ben Saraf. The Nets are such assholes, though. They had nobody playing above 30 minutes last game, even though it's a new year. Like, you could play guys a few more minutes, but they're doing the same thing they did last year. I just liked what I saw from Saraf and from Demine. Just Demine ran really hot. He hit every shot possible, and Saraf did a bunch of stuff but didn't hit shots. So I like Saraf today.
And just going to double check to see, was there an update on Cat that came through in the last couple of minutes? And no, nothing quite yet. So nothing there on Karl-Anthony Towns. That is going to be something that Josh and I are going to have to cover in the post-lock show over on Playback. That is going to be starting in 5 minutes. JT Mack, favorite cash game plays on DraftKings, and then also wants to know a nuke for us. I'm going to stick with Miles McBride here as my, we only got 9% ownership going to McBride. There's still a chance that Karl-Anthony Towns ends up sitting. So I'm going to go with Miles McBride as a nuke option. Not going to play the animation just because we're up against it when it comes to time. But for yourself, Spags, who would you consider your nuke of the night?
I'll go Stephon Castle. I think he can hit with Wembanyama. Was encouraged to see him back above 30% usage rate in that first game. I worry that the Devin Vassals of the world, the Keldon Johnsons of the world can take some of that usage back, but it was really like a three-headed monster between him and Dylan Harper and Wemby. So Castle's the guy I have the most of relative to the field not playing a lot of, it seems.
And then also favorite cash plays overall for the slate. Yeah, so for cash games, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Derek Queen, now that he's pretty popular, Anthony Davis, Andrew Wiggins, Wemby. I'd say those are the top cash game options overall. Got a super chat here from Justin. Happy to see you could post that ridiculously expensive bond, Greg. It wasn't that expensive. I mean, it's not that expensive when you know the answers to the test ahead of time. You've been accumulating some wealth a little bit. Looking forward to the season with you guys. And then he also says Octo Thorpe unders. Yeah, shout out to you, Justin. Thank you very much for the nice words and the super chat. Win wants to know, is it okay to play Luka and Wemby in the same lineup on FanDuel? Yeah, that is no issue at all.
Yeah, if you can afford it, sure. You're definitely spending a lot, but those are the two top guys on the slate. And there was just a projection update as well for, I think, anybody waiting for the Cleveland ramifications.
Yeah, which I'll pull those up in a second here. Just going to refresh the page and see what it is that shows up there. I just have to upload my lineups as well. It's Jay wants to know how much NAW is too much. Sims are giving him 65%. That's where I'm at. I've got NAW in 2/3 of my lineups right now. So I think that is totally reasonable.
That was also my cap too. So we are all in lockstep. No more than 2/3 NAW. I think that's definitely a big stand, but not too much.
Yeah, I just didn't want it to be that initial exposure we were getting where it was like 100%. And then, something happens like Morant gets ruled out, Cat gets ruled out. You just don't want it to be where you aren't able to get to some of the value options because everything's already locked in. So I feel good about him being in 2/3 of my lineups. And I also have everything updated now. So I'll let you guys know what we have for updated projections for the Cleveland guys. And don't want my computer to stall out at all. So I'm just going to pull it up on this separate screen and then I'll read it off to you guys. Here's what we have now. For the cheaper guys, Sam Merrill now for 22 fantasy points, Lonzo Ball for 22 fantasy points. We have Jalen Tyson at just under 20 fantasy points at 4K. Larry Nance, 16.5 fantasy points. Dean Wade, 16.5 fantasy points. Donovan Mitchell at 45.5. We've got Evan Mobley at 43. Jared Allen at 31. Does anything really stand out to you from Cleveland? Because it looks like a lot of guys who, if you played, you'd be like, cool. I got a guy who's projecting for like a little bit over 5x salary, but nothing looks like a priority as a result of this. By the way, Tyson is starting again.
Yeah, Tyson came up a little bit more for me, but frankly, Sam Merrill at 4% ownership before, I guess whatever's moving around. He might be the guy that closes. Brooklyn not defending threes really well going back to last year, but for the one game especially, they gave up 48% shooting from deep. Maybe Merrill can get going, but they all look, I agree with you, like they all look a little bit better. Nobody looks like a standout kind of runaway play from the Cleveland side.
All right, we are approaching lock here. Any final thoughts for the people, Spags, before Josh and I head on over to playback? And I am trying really quickly to pull up if there was any real pressing questions. Win in chat, Wiggins or Laurie. That is Laurie Markkinen for me over Wiggins. And then Sotek's thoughts on playing McBride with NAW. Totally fine to get both of them in the same lineup. So that should answer all of the questions there. But Spags, any final thoughts for the people as we approach lock here?
No, I mean, obviously the John Morant thing seems like the big one. I still assume Cat plays, so I'm taking that off the equation. But if he were not to play, everything's going to move around and you probably want to rerun your lineups. But I think really John Morant being out, trying to have some flexibility. That's an 8 o'clock game. So hopefully if you have enough of the San Antonio game at the same time and Washington, Dallas, you'll be able to move some stuff around no matter what. Javon Small, I think, will come up a lot. Coward will also become a popular play. That's really the most important spot right now. But this is chaotic, Greg. I feel like for 3 days into the season, it should be light and easy. And no, we still had to do changing and swapping to the last minute here.
Yeah, it was, and still probably late swap to come as well. So keep in mind, here's what we're still waiting on is a couple of big ones. We've got Karl-Anthony Towns still officially questionable for today. John Morant also still officially questionable. And those are big injuries that are going to impact both the DraftKings as well as the FanDuel slate. So guys, come join Josh and I over in playback. I dropped the link into chat. And yeah, this could potentially be a very important late swap slate. So you don't want to miss any of those swaps. Make sure you're using the late swap tool over at Stokastic as well if players do get ruled out. So hit that link that I dropped into chat. Join Josh and I over on playback. Thank you guys very much for watching the show. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll be back here. Spags and I again tomorrow night. So see you tomorrow. Later, guys.